Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
All right, everybody, how much RAM do you have in your computer right now? Like your primary computer, how much do you have? 2 gigs, 512 megabytes, a gig, 512, 2. I'm guessing a lot of you are Windows users, especially if you only have 2 gigs of RAM in your system. Really, if you've only got a 32-bit version of Windows, 2 gigs is about all you really need and or use. How much do you have, babe? I think you've actually got 4 in your system. Although your system was definitely built for 64-bit platforming, I shudder to think of what it would be like to run 64-bit Windows and try to support it, knowing that many other geeks can barely do it themselves. I remember when I upgraded from 8 to 16 megs of RAM way back in the days of Windows 3.1, and then upgrading from 16 to 32 when Windows 95 was released. And I tell you, the speed differences were palpable. Now, I don't know if you could get the same, just feel like, wow, this is really a much more responsive system by going from a gig of RAM to 2 gig of RAM in Windows. Some people may have experienced that. I think it's a bigger leap, or was a bigger leap way back when the differences were dramatic. And not to say that between 1 gig and 2 isn't dramatic, just that Windows is certainly a lot more efficient with memory management than it used to be way back in the day. I know that if I review this video that we recorded here at the beginning of 2008, if I review this video 5 years from now, and we see that some people are getting along with 2 gigabytes of RAM, we'll laugh at ourselves. We'll think, gosh, how did anybody get along without 64 terabytes of memory? I mean, geez, you couldn't even do anything. You can't even play Minesweeper on less than 18 gigs of RAM now in Windows. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. But no matter, we are here today, and we have to deal with memory, and it can be costly. Over time, though, RAM prices usually do drop. I've got a question submitted by Ashley Blackwell, and said that he recently went to a memory manufacturer, and they said on the website that for the 13-inch black MacBook, a 2.2 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo, he should upgrade the 1 gig of RAM he has to a 4 gig kit. He asked, do I need this much RAM? Or would spending half the price to upgrade just to 2 gigs be plenty? And he said he looked at Apple.com and they wanted a small fortune for RAM, so he wanted to find a third party. This won't void my Apple warranty that you know of, right? Thanks. Well, I don't know about Apple warranties. However, I know that Apple can't guarantee that you're not going to have wacky things happen with your system if you're using third-party vendor memory. I would never recommend purchasing RAM memory through Apple.com. I just wouldn't do it. I have installed third-party RAM into this MacBook. It came with 2 gigs, and I upgraded to 4 gigs. I just replaced the 2 memory components that I had with an additional 2. I sold the other memory just to someone, I think they were local. I ended up trying to eBay, and then they just contacted me through the chat room at live.pirillo.com. But there are some places on the web that will buy back your RAM if you're replacing it, which if you didn't want to sell it, I mean, otherwise it would just be sitting on the shelf. The worst thing you could do is mix memory types. I mean, you can only really likely install one type of RAM in your system, whichever system you happen to have. In this case, you've got a 13-inch black or MacBook, a regular old MacBook. But if you had, let's say, the same kind of RAM, exact same specs but made by different companies, don't install them in the same machine together. That's kind of a no-no. You never know the differences with the way each one of those memory components had been manufactured. The age, of course. I mean, there's so many variables you're introducing when you do that. It's generally frowned upon. Timings, as M. Bonzo also just brought up. Dude, that is a huge saving. I don't know. Google, did I miss something? Someone may have said something in the chat room. This is why I usually don't read the chat room as I'm recording the videos, because I get caught up in the conversation. Don't buy through Apple. If you're going to upgrade your Mac, you can buy through third-party sites, and even though Apple won't tell you to do that, the way Apple tries to write it off is they say, well, we're guaranteed that our RAM is going to be great, when in fact it's really not any better than similar spec RAM from third-party vendors, so long as those third parties are doing the right things. There are a few websites that you can go to for that. I'm not going to name any manufacturer in particular, just because, well, they haven't necessarily communicated with me in that capacity. If you have Windows, which, of course, if you've got a 13-inch black MacBook, you probably don't. Windows is fine up to 2 gigs. If you're running a 64-bit operating system like Mac OS X on a 64-bit platform, if it can take 4 gigs, I say go 4 gigs. The difference between 2 and 4, I tell you, going from 2 to 4 gigs on the Mac, I thought made small differences. Nothing like leaps and bounds. I wasn't finding that certain things were just so much faster. But with applications that are RAM intensive, where you are doing a lot of video editing, if you're doing a lot of heavy lifting, at least with system components, the more RAM you have, typically, the better you're going to be. If you can afford it, I would go from a gig to 4. You're probably really going to notice the difference then. But if you're on a budget, 2 should be fine, even for Mac OS X. And as I said, for Windows users, it's kind of a different story. I'm not going to go into the whole debate on whether or not 32-bit Windows can take advantage of anything beyond 2 gigs truly. And I know this is like a battle of, well, it can take advantage to it in this way, and if you do this and that, and it's like, if you got 32-bit Windows, you're pretty much stuck with 2 gigs of RAM. If you can get it to recognize 3, great. But it's not the same. To take advantage of 4 or more, you need to be on a 64-bit platform. In fact, the new Mac Pros, and this is what I'm in the process of debating, my Mac Pro is still in order, but I'm going to be ordering my RAM through a third-party vendor. I've got to find the company that's going to do that. I don't know yet. I'm still kind of price comparison shopping, and I'm not sure if I want to go with 8, 16, or 32 gigs of RAM yet. I'm just kind of tossed up on that. Now, I could probably get by with 8. That's fine. A little more future-proofing at 16. If I went with 32 gigs of RAM, I don't know what I would use it for, and it would likely just be for bragging rights. So I'm likely going to be fine, I think, between 8 and 16, likely be settling on 16, since I could probably price it well within the budget that I had for memory, for RAM and add-ons and whatnot. So you can see my wife now in green popping in and out of chat. What was the question? RAM, Ponzi, was the question. She's typing. This is how married people communicate, through chat rooms. Memory. Yes, Ponzi, memory. Now this is the thing. Memory is not a hard drive. Hard drive is where the programs and files sit waiting to be accessed. And then when they are accessed, they're loaded up into memory. The more memory you have, the faster your system is going to likely respond. And if you deal with a lot of virtual machines, which I am going to be doing, at least on Mac OS X, then I'm going to want to dedicate some RAM to each of those machines. And so that's why I am leaning more towards a 16 gig system rather than just stopping at 8 gigs and calling it a day. Uh-oh, Ponzi has a question. We've already done an answer on what's a virtual machine. We've done a video on that. Okay, Ponzi, what was the question? If you have tons of RAM or memory, yes. This is the chat room at live.pirillo.com, by the way, that I'm reading from. Babe, type faster. Then don't you have to upgrade the processor? No, you don't. The system itself, the motherboard may only be able to handle so much memory. There may be a limitation on it on the platform, but you don't have to upgrade your memory at the same time as upgrading your processor. They're two completely independent components. You would go with more RAM if your system felt sluggish. If you were, working with video, a lot of audio, that usually takes advantage of more RAM. If you want your system to be just faster at its core, upgrading the processor will typically do that trick. If you want to make your processes run a little more efficiently, having multitasking happen in a lot quicker, be a lot more responsive, sometimes upgrading the RAM will do the trick as well. Ponzarelli, you are a geek, and you can no longer deny it. Uh-oh, M. Rivera 1 is calling out my wife, calling her a geek. Oh, she's saying she's a wannabe geek? No, babe, in order to do that, first you have to start wearing glasses, and 2, you have to put duct tape right in the middle of your... or electrical tape. I got electrical tape. Here, babe, come here. Come here, babe. Come up here. Come on upstairs. If you're a wannabe geek, this is the rite of initiation. Or rite of passage. Initiation rite? This is what a lot of my geek friends, they look like this, and maybe you've seen this geek too. I'm doing this. I'm not going to tape my glasses so much. This is what I'm going to do here. You know this geek. You know who this is, and if this is you, I feel sorry. Now I've got a unibrow going on. Do you see my unibrow? How many geeks do you know have the unibrow thing going on? We got the That's when you know you're a geek, because you like sitting around internet website things talking about upgrading memory. No matter if anybody has a recommendation for me on going with 8, 16, or 32, or specifically where I could get it from, or possibly where other Mac users might be able to get it from, possibly at a discount, any specials that might be out there, let me know. My email address is chris@pirillo.com. For Ash, I'm saying it's a matter of budget. 2 or 4 should suit you just fine for regular tasks. And if you would like to hang out with the rest of us geeks, sometimes we talk about hardware, sometimes we talk about software, sometimes we talk about the things that geeks do to get attention, like not shaving their unibrow. You never really know what's going to happen, but you're certainly welcome to join us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we're typically talking tech at live.pirillo.com. We'll see you later.